Hi, welcome back to Philly Formation. This is Brandon.
And this is Jared.
Okay, so we're continuing on with our team history and off season, and actually now it's post draft, so we actually have a little bit more insight, or quite a bit more
Okay.
insight to what these teams are going to really look like come season opener in September. So yeah, but yeah, we're on the Colts now at pick number 14, and so we'll dive into their history a little bit. So the team was actually purchased from the Ohio League. It says Ohio. I think it was just Ohio League. Ohio League. I can't remember what it was, but they were the Dayton Triangles, and what they had a mashup with the Dallas Texans as well. They were purchased in 1953. January 23rd, 1953 is when they actually became the Baltimore Colts. So that's been 72 years ago. It was Carol Rosebloom who first bought them. They were in Baltimore from 1953 to 1983, and then moved to Indy in 1984, and still are there present day. And then two owners they had since then was Robert and Jim Irsay, father son, and Jim Irsay is the owner still. They were in the AFC East from 1970 to 2001. Now they're in the AFC South since 2002 when they did the conference when they did the division realignments. um, and before that, the shit says they were in the Western Conference from 53 to 69, which is weird because
That is weird.
that's not Western at all.
No.
But it's funny how they did their conferences. So they've been league champs 5 times with two Super Bowls added in there. The two Super Bowls were 1970 again and Super Bowl five against the Cowboys, Johnny Unitas days, and then 2009 with Peyton Manning, and that was a Super Bowl 41 with beating the Bears. Which that was a good Super Bowl actually. I think that was the one where Devin Hester took the opening
He
kick.
did, yep.
Didn't look good at
Hmm.
first for the Colts. I think it was the only Super Bowl to start off with.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
It was.
They've been conference champs 7 times, division champs 16 times. They've been to the playoffs 29 times. And a little fun fact that after most of their over half, I think it was like 16 playoffs appearances since 1999. So I think we know what happened after
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
which was when Peyton Manning became a Indianapolis Colt. So yeah, 16 times after 99. They did go to the Super Bowl a couple more times. They lost to the Jets in Super Bowl three, which was a huge upset. The Colts were like big time favored, and then the Jets come in there out of the AFL, which they didn't
Hmm.
think much of them, and
Was
beat
that
them.
who was the quarterback for the Jets?
Joe Namath.
Joe Namath, that's right, yep.
Yep, yep. And then they lost to the Saints in Super Bowl
Hmm.
44, which that was with Drew Brees.
Yep.
That was a good team. And another fun fact is all four of their Super Bowls took place in Miami.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they played at the Orange Bowl, and then I think the last 3 times was wherever the Dolphins, wherever their stadium was. So all three. I mean, it was in Miami, but whatever they called it,
Yeah.
and what I don't know if they've moved it or they just refurbished or what. But yeah, um, overall record for the Colts is 564, 510, and 8. So they have a winning record
Yeah.
overall. Um, and I thought that 29 times in 72 years wasn't great, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
I think that I mean obviously it's less than half, but I think they had a really down spot. It seemed like after Unitas up until Peyton Manning, they made the playoffs a couple times and did some things, but I mean they had what like Jim Harbaugh was there. I think they made the playoffs
Yeah.
in the 90s, but yeah, really it was in between their two greatest players that they've had that they did that. I think I put Tony Dungy down. I think he was one of the only coaches. I don't know if he's the winningest coach, but the guy had 85 wins and he was 85 and 27, which is crazy because I don't know how you get fired if you have a
Yeah,
record like that.
that's I didn't realize his record was that good. That's crazy.
Yeah, and he coached from 2002 to 2008.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a hell of a win loss record. I feel like, especially in today's game.
Hmm.
Other coaches I put down was Weed Eubank from 58 to 63, and then Don Shula was
Hmm.
actually the coach there from 63 to 69, which I didn't realize. That
Okay.
must have been right up until he became the Dolphins
Yeah.
after that, right? And then Don McCafferty from 70 to 73. I think Don Shula did have a winning record. I didn't write it down, but I do think he did have a winning record. We'll go into their stats. The top passer, I mean, I think that's pretty clear who that's going to be, was Peyton Manning at 54,828 yards. And I think that's just for the Colts.
It has to be. Yeah.
And so then when you add on the time with the Broncos, it even gets more ridiculous. But that was from 98 to 2011, and he had 399 touchdowns in his time there as well. Second to that was Unitas, which it was really kind of he had more yards than what I thought. He had 39,768. Now he did play 16 years there, 16 seasons. So, but still, I thought with the era of football he played in, it was a lot more than what I thought. And then Luck was third with 23,671. And I do think that he would have passed Unitas if he didn't have all the injuries and retire early. But I don't think he's really didn't maybe a real outside chance of touching Peyton Manning, just because Manning didn't finish his career there. But still, that's a lot of yards that he'd have to come up on. The rushing is Edgerrin James, 9,226. He played there from 99 to 2005. Receiving yards was Marvin Harrison with 14,580. He played there from 96 to 2008, which I didn't realize he started a couple of years before Peyton. I thought it was like right at the same time.
I thought it was too, yeah.
But interceptions was Bobby Boyd. He had 57 interceptions. He played from 1960 to 1968. Tackles was Dwayne Bickett. He was a linebacker from 85 to 93. He had 1,052. And the scoring leader, I mean, it's Adam Vinatieri, who they have down at 1,515. He did play a lot of his career there.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense. I know he started with the Patriots, but yeah, that does kind of make sense. That tracks a little bit. Retired numbers, obviously Peyton Manning, Johnny Unitas. Those are the big ones that, Buddy Young, Lenny Moore, Art Donovan, Jim Parker, Ray Berry, and Gino Machete. Those guys I haven't even really heard of because I'm not a huge Colts fan. I mean, I'm a fan.
Are a lot of those in the 70s? From
Yeah,
the 70s?
those are. Yeah,
when they were winning their Super Bowl.
Yep. Yeah, I think those are still back in there. I think one of those guys was from the 80s, though. A lineman was. And then, I mean, I was looking into players, just, big players they've had, notable players. I mean, obviously, you got Manning, Unitas. I've already mentioned them. I've already mentioned Luck, but he was a big player. Harrison as well, Edgerrin James. Jim Harbaugh, I mentioned him a little bit. I think he was a quarterback there. I don't remember how long, but I think it was a few years there. Phillip Rivers was there. He ended up going there for a couple of years. Gardner Minshew played there. Jeff George. I remember Jeff George playing there. Carson Wentz has been there.
Yep.
And Marshall Faulk was actually drafted there.
Oh, wow.
Played a couple of years before he was traded, I
didn't
think.
realize that, yeah.
And then we got, what's their running back now? Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor. Yeah. I put Jay Taylor. I was like, Jason? I couldn't remember. My brain went dead. But, yeah, Jonathan Taylor. Eric Dickerson played some time there. And another guy, Joseph Adai, a running back. He was pretty good. Frank Gore did play there for 3 seasons. Reggie Wayne was a heck of a receiver for them. Dallas Clark did a really good job. Tight end. T.Y. Hilton, another wide receiver. And Antoine Bethea. Robert Mathis was huge at defensive end.
That's when they had Mathis and Fearney playing defensive end, right?
Yep.
They were a terror to deal with.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, that defense actually kind of was overshadowed by how good the offense was, I think. Tony Siragusa started his career there.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I always remember him just being a Baltimore Raven pretty much.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yep. Zaire Franklin was a good player. Anthony Richardson I put down, and then Joe Flacco. I had to put that in for Gage.
Gage will like that.
Yeah, and I think Anthony Richardson right now, kind of going into what their offseason looks like, is, he's a big name right now. He was I think he was second or third overall draft pick.
Yeah,
I think he went third behind Stroud. Either I know he was the third quarterback taken, and I mean it's kind of big right now because they've got a quarterback room that's pretty unsure right now, and then it's kind of goes with their history that if they don't have, I mean it kind of goes with a lot of people. Some people can win without a great quarterback, some people can't, and the Colts have kind of shown that they can't really make it there to the playoffs without a good quarterback.
Right.
So they're unsure. So I don't think they made the playoffs for 2 straight years now, 2 or 3. I don't think they made it in Richardson.
I don't think so. Was Matt Ryan the quarterback when the last time they made the playoffs?
Yeah, so actually it'd be 3 seasons.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Matt Ryan, yeah, that was another guy too. I don't know if I mentioned him or not.
Well, they went through that spell of like after Andrew Luck, it was kind of like I think it was like Philip Rivers. He was there for a couple of years, and then they tried the Carson Wentz experiment
Yep.
after the Philadelphia. Did he go straight to the Colts after
It might have
Philadelphia?
been, yeah.
And then that didn't pan out, and then it was like the Matt Ryan, and so they were just trying to like plug and play these older guys that
Yep.
nobody really wanted to pay anymore because they were getting old and they were trying to get younger. But it kind of seemed like they were pretty successful with Philip Rivers. I thought they had a pretty decent record, and
Yeah, I think they
maybe
made
won
the
a playoff
playoffs.
game.
I think they did, and if I remember right, looking at the playoffs, I think they did make one or two. And
Right.
it was like kind of right in the early, like between 2012 to
Mm-hmm.
2015 or something like that.
I just remember after the Peyton Manning, because they had that one season where he was. I don't think they had traded him yet, but he had like his neck surgery, and nobody was unsure if he was going to play again, and so they were bad. And they got the first pick, and then they got Andrew Luck, and it was like, oh my gosh, they're going to have another franchise quarterback for the next 15
Yeah.
some years, and it's
Yep.
like they're just going to continue on. And I just remember Andrew Luck's retirement like came out of nowhere because it was kind of like it felt like he was kind of finally starting to get healthy, and the Colts had finally done a good job of seemingly get an offensive line around him to
Right.
protect him, and it was kind of like, okay, the Colts are going to be a terror for the next couple years, and it was like out of nowhere. Andrew Luck in a preseason game, halftime, it was like Andrew Luck's retiring.
Right.
And I remember the crowd like booing him off the field, and I was like, what are you guys doing? This is
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, it was wild, and I totally agree with you. I think it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I know it was health issues that he retired over, but it was like, man, what a tough break for them.
Mhm.
Because I agree. I think it was the season before that he actually had a really good second half of the season.
Yep.
Started coming back, and it looked like, okay, here we go. And yeah, and then he kind of got some injuries during the offseason or something.
Must,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, I think right now I think that they did draft Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. They took him, and I think they got Richardson. And did they? I know they had somebody else in there.
Daniel Jones. They got
Daniel Jones,
yeah.
right? Thank you. So I mean, their quarterback room is pretty unsure. Anthony Richardson, he can't stay healthy, which is I think what a lot of people saw
Yep.
going into his career. And then I don't know. I mean, Daniel Jones has had maybe a good season and a half, I think. So I'm not really looking too forward to what they have in that quarterback room. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that I really enjoyed what they did in the draft a lot more than what I saw just for their offseason stuff. I liked what they did in the draft a lot more than what they did in free agency.
Mhm.
And it was more free agency. What I didn't like about it was what they let go
Right.
more than what they picked up. Because I really think that letting Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly go
Mhm.
from that offensive line, that was a big deal.
It was, yep.
And that both of those guys I think ended up going to the Vikings.
Yep.
So I mean, Vikings got a big gain there, and I don't think they overpaid for either
I
one.
don't
So
think so either.
I think they could have kept them both.
Yeah, they must feel pretty good about their um, center and guard combo that's going to replace him because it's going to be a fourth round pick from last year and a third round pick from last year that are replacing Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. So
Yeah.
I mean they have invested in years past to drafts offensive linemen because they got um, their left tackle looked like they drafted 2 years ago in the third round. Obviously, Quentin Nelson's still there, one of the
Mhm.
best guards in the league. He was a first round pick, and then just talked about their center and guard that got drafted last year in the third and fourth round, and then they got backups that they've drafted in the years past. So
Right.
obviously, they feel pretty good about those guys.
They must,
Maybe more
yeah.
than what we probably do
Right.
to let your starting center and guard go, but they have invested in it, so it's not like they aren't bringing guys in that's never been in the system before. That's just guys that are probably next guys up. So.
Right. That's
Mhm.
they need to come up because they did bring in a Wesley French, an offensive lineman, and I think Danny Pinter as the center. But I don't think those are depth pieces. I don't
Mhm.
think unless they compete for a starting position. I'm not that impressed with that. And in the free agency they brought in, Khalil Herbert. Okay, give some carries to him, take
Yeah.
a little load off Jonathan Taylor. Like you mentioned, Daniel Jones, and then brought in safety Cameron Bynum. And I think one of their biggest pickup to me was Travarius Ward.
Yeah.
And I think that he's going to do a lot of good on defense for him. I think that it is going to be a good pickup. But I really thought that, after letting those two go, I really would have rather see them sign both of their offensive linemen and not pick
Right.
up Traveris Ward.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's a bad pickup necessarily, but I just think that if they would have just kept those guys, it would have been way better. And then you can draft defense, I guess. But now they did use their pick 127 to get an offensive tackle, but they might be able to move him inside if they need to. Jalen Travis from Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I think they tried to address it a little bit, but I really feel like, man, I like Ryan Kelly a lot. I think he's a really good center.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings are just happy as hell that the Colts didn't,
I think
put
so
money
too.
out for him.
I remember in free agency it was always Drew Dahlman and Ryan Kelly as the top two centers that people were vying for. And Drew Dahlman ended up going to the Bears. He's a little bit younger than Ryan Kelly, but Ryan Kelly I thought was still solidified number two center in free agency.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, they must feel pretty good about what's his name, Tanner Portolino, that fourth round pick from last year. So I don't know. I don't know anything about the guy, to be honest with you. So,
Yeah, definitely an O line that's in the work in progress
Right,
type
yep.
stage. So
yeah, just looking at, I mean, obviously they got their weapon with Tyler Warren. I honestly think this might be the make or break year with Anthony Richardson because this will be his third year. I think they were pretty high on him those first 6 games that he started his rookie year. I think he came out, pretty decently. They were kind of running that offense how they wanted to run it, and with Shane Steichen as the offensive coordinator, head coach. But just injuries have plagued this guy. It kind of seems like when he starts to get on a roll, he gets hurt, and like he's out. They pull him, and then he's starting again. It's just, I don't know.
and he's streaky,
He is,
accuracy issues at times.
right.
I've seen. I know that when we had Hunter on here during the season, Hunter was at the beginning like, I like it, I like him, and he's gonna be good. And then I don't remember who they played, but he had I think he was like, I want to say it was like 9 for 23, something
Yeah,
like that on passing. And
yeah.
then Hunter's come back and, nope, man, he ain't the quarterback. You see some of them throws he was making? It's like, yeah, and he's streaky. But I mean, the thing about him was he's kind of he's an electric player.
Mhm.
Like he's a playmaker, and he'll run the ball for you to get you touchdowns.
Yep.
As long as he can stay healthy, I think that at least he gives them a chance
Yep.
in games on offense because he's never out of the play. He can scramble like
Mhm.
hell, and when he is on, he has an arm. I mean, he
does,
really
yeah.
does.
He does. Yep.
And you're kind of hoping that, like you said, if he was injury free, maybe that would have come along a little better too, just
Right.
the accuracy. But totally agree. I think this is going to be it. I don't expect him to be the answer though, in my opinion. I think too much has happened. I think like I think too many injuries. I think he's already lost a step, like towards the right direction for that. So yeah, I'm not really seeing him being the answer there. I kind of see him more having to at least revert to Riley Leonard and
Mhm.
Daniel Jones at some point in
Yep.
the season. Even if he is playing well, it's probably going to be because injury too.
Right.
So
I mean, I remember even the skill players last year with um, Jonathan Taylor being finally healthy. He had a really good year. He kind of finally had that year you knew Jonathan Taylor could have. But I mean, I really like Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, and they even have Mo Alley. I liked Mo Alley Cox before they picked up Tyler Warren. So I mean, he's got the weapons around him. I think he's got the offense around him to kind of showcase like, hey, this is. That's why I think this might be it. But
mhm.
I don't know. I just would want to see him kind of healthy and hopefully being healthy throughout the off season and maybe getting those reps as with number ones and coming in the season healthy. Maybe that'll
Yep.
benefit him more. I don't know. But I can kind of feel like this might be a make or break year for Shane Steichen too. It kind of
Right.
felt like he was on the hot seat last year. Maybe they were giving him another shot with Anthony Richardson.
They ended up going what? Was it 7-10 or 8-9 last season?
I can't remember.
I want to say 8-9.
The year before though is when they had Gardner Minshew when Anthony Richardson got hurt. They kind of made a little bit of a run.
Yeah.
And then this last year, it was kind of like, I just remember Anthony Richardson started, who wasn't doing good, whether he got hurt, and Joe Flacco came in, and then Anthony Richardson came back in, and then he wasn't playing well, so they pulled him, and Joe Flacco was starting. It was just kind of quarterback roulette back there. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
They couldn't get either of them
Yep.
to play efficiently and
Right.
consistently. Yep.
It was hard. And defensively, I like it. they have one of my favorite 49ers on there. I'm still bitter that the Niners traded him. I think he's still all Pro Bowl football player still 5 years later is DeForest Buckner.
Yep.
And they've invested heavily in that defensive line. They got spent a first round pick on Kwity Paye. They traded a first round pick for DeForest Buckner. They drafted that Latu last year in the first round, and then they drafted that
JT Tuamoloau.
in the second round this year. So they've invested heavily. They got that. Looks like they picked up Samson and Bacham. He played for the Niners too. So their front seven or their front line, anyways, still pretty stout.
Right.
So and then they get Lou Amarillo as their defensive coordinator from Cincinnati.
Oh yeah.
And then shoring up the back end with you already talked about Shavarius Ward, and then they got Can Bynum too as a free safety from Minnesota.
Yep.
So it's going to be two new players back there with Nick Cross and Jalen Jones. I mean, I kind of like this team on paper. It looks good. It's just one of those things if Anthony Richardson can figure it out.
Right. I
Other
think
than that, it's
I think you
pretty
got
solid.
a work in progress at O line, and you got kind of a quarterback room
Mhm.
that's iffy. I'm really kind of hoping that Riley Leonard is the guy in the end,
Yeah.
because at least then maybe they, I know that Anthony Richardson's still young, but I also see like that I guess I also kind of see the strength in having a pocket passer too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they have kind of that. They have a lot of weapons with, like you said, with Downs and
Pierce
and
and
now, yeah, and Tyler Warren. I
Yeah.
think that was a great
It
pick.
was, yeah.
Dude, the way that fell to the Colts
Mhm.
just worked out perfect. Because in my opinion, I like Colston Loveland,
Mhm.
but I don't think he was to the caliber of Tyler Warren. So when the Bears took him, I was like, whoa, really? For one, that shocked me because the Bears took a tight end.
Yeah.
And then two, it was like, this guy's really going to fall right to him. And that was one of their biggest needs was the tight end.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I remember I was texting my buddy who's a really big Chicago fan, and I was surprised too because I was like, Wilson Loveland, and he was like, oh, well, obviously his first choice was, and he said that the Bears were high on Genty. If Genty was going to fall, he was going to be their pick, I think. But everything he said about Wilson Loveland, he's like, I'm not surprised they really like this guy pre-draft. And it was just good getting insight from a Chicago fan, like, oh,
Right.
I didn't do any research on it, but he's just like, dude, they love this guy
wow.
pre-draft, and so he's like, I'm not surprised that they picked him over Warren because it kind of seemed like their interest was more towards Colston Loveland than Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
And like you and Gage said on the podcast, it definitely was a scheme fit. Everything that I've heard was he's going to be the Sam Laporta
Mhm.
type in that offense, and I think he's more geared toward to be that type than Tyler Warren is.
Yeah.
For
that.
Johnson,
Scheme.
Ben Johnson,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
it made sense after talking to somebody about it, which
Right.
is pretty good insight, which is nice. So I guess I'm not too shocked. It like you said, but I think the Colts definitely benefited for themselves if Tyler Warren dropped because I think he's kind of a do-it-all. He can line up in 3 or 4 different spots on that offense and contribute, which
Mhm.
is nice.
Right. Right. And I I like their draft. I thought they did well. I thought they went through. If I'm looking at the whole draft, I was like, wow, they actually drafted. I mean, we're going by just draft numbers,
Mhm.
right? Because obviously that's all going to pan out over the next couple of years how good their draft was. But if you're just looking at it from like draft perspective stuff, I mean, they really kind of hit on a lot of value. They got a couple of defensive backs and the safety Hunter Waller from Wisconsin and Justin Wally from Minnesota, and I
Mhm.
think those were both pretty good picks.
I think so, yeah.
Once you look into them a little bit more, you're like, I don't know how they fell. Like Justin
Mhm.
Wally, they got him at 80, and actually he was probably a cornerback that probably could have went in the
Yeah.
second round. And I think that's falling. I think 80 is start of the fourth round or in the fourth round at that
Towards
point.
the end of the third, it says.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. And I mean, like we talked about Tyler Warren already, and then you go to JT Tuamoloau. That guy should have been drafted in the first round. He's a
I liked
really
him,
good defensive end, and I didn't do enough research on him beforehand until I did this until I got ready for this episode. He's really good.
Yep.
As far as draft stuff goes, Jalen Travis was an offensive tackle. Iowa State. DJ Giddens was the running back. He's pretty good.
He
Kansas
is really
State.
good, yep.
I liked him. So I think their running back room is actually pretty solid. And I think if he can go in there and provide a spark, he's pretty quick from
He
what
is, yeah.
from what I looked. So they had got another defensive tackle. Like you said, they've been investing in that defensive line a
Mhm.
lot. They got that big boy from Alabama, Tim Smith. And so I think, I like their draft better than, like I said, than their free agency.
Yep.
So if these guys pan out, they got some hits here. I really feel like they do, and if they do pan out, and I do feel like we talked about, Anthony Richardson plays
Mhm.
decently, or at least somebody in that quarterback room can just maybe just carry the team a little bit, as in maybe just I guess manage the team is what I
Right.
should say. Manage that offense a little bit. I think they're a playoff team. So I think that they could, or they'll be right around that area. We're looking at like 9, 10, maybe 11 wins.
I
So
think they benefit too playing in the division that they play in with uh, the Texans, um, Tennessee Titans, and
Jags.
the Jags. And
Yep.
so, I mean, you look at the Tennessee Titans. They weren't dominant last year. I think they won 10 games maybe
Oh,
to
you're
win the
talking? You
division.
mean the
Texans. I'm sorry,
Texans?
the
Yep.
Texans. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and so it's kind of wide open if you ask me. I don't see the Texans being a clear favorite. I know they've won the
Mm-mm.
last 2 years, but I'm with you on the Colts. If they can kind of figure out their quarterback situation, they have everything else around it to be successful. So I mean that's always the wild card
Right.
though.
Right. I love what you said about the Texans too, man, because it was like all season long they were just daring one of these other
Yeah.
teams to play good enough to knock them out of there. They really, honestly, they took a huge step back
Yep.
from the season before where they had 13 wins.
Hmm.
And if they were in any other division, they don't win it.
Right.
And I don't even think they're a playoff team. So they're kind of up in the air. I know their defense showed up in the playoffs, so we know what they can be. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the window's wide open to win the division, and I definitely think that they're one or two in that division, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And I'd probably put them at two just because of CJ Stroud
Yeah.
being on the Texans. But I think the Colts are by far. I think there's a huge gap between the top two teams and the
I
bottom
think
two
so too.
teams.
Yep.
I think the Jaguars, man, I've been trying to root for those guys. I like Trevor Lawrence, but man, he just has not put it together. They were just last 2 years not been good, even though they started really hot a
Mhm.
couple seasons ago. So yeah, it's just yeah, that division is kind of rough. They're are kind of having a rough time of it. And like I said, their division leader had 10 wins, 10,
Yep.
11 wins. So all right, yeah. I mean, I think we kind of said it. I think the Colts are uh could be a playoff team, could get in there. And if their quarterback plays bad, I think the floor is still going to be probably for me 9 wins.
Yeah.
I think they could get it. The ceiling is probably about 11 or 12 wins,
Hmm.
just because of quarterback. Even if Anthony Richardson, he would have to have a Pro Bowl type season,
Yeah.
a huge bounce back. But yeah, I think their offense is kind of work in progress. But yeah, I think they're going to be all right. All right, would like to thank Rock again. We'll do for the intro music and the outro music, and we appreciate you guys all watching. And catch us on our next one.